Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Not Just Business. Today we're going to talk about sales. Some people are hesitant to do, that people avoid, try not to do, and we all have our perceptions of what salespeople look like, but none of us can doubt that sales are important to any organization. If you're not selling anything, well, nobody's getting any money. So I'm fortunate today to have an expert on sales, the CEO and founder of SalesFix, Mr. Jack Ellis. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today.
It is our pleasure. Tell us about your business. What is a service product or product that you provide to an organization?
Well, what we do, Derek, is exactly what the name of the company says. We fix sales. So whether it's building a sales strategy, aligning an organization to the sales strategy, we do training. I don't do basic selling skills. I do advanced selling skills. We have our own unique methodology, which encompasses key account management and activity planning, accurate forecasting, important things like that. So, we fix sales for business-to-business sales. I don't actually deal with companies that sell to individuals. It's business-to-business primarily, the complex sell.
So what does your typical client look like? I know you've worked all over the world and in industrial organizations and financial services and all kinds of companies. So what would you look for before you take on a client?
The most important thing is the fact that it is a complex sale. So it's normally big deals. Any high-ticket item where you have a longer sales cycle, sometimes 3-6 month sales cycle. And it doesn't matter which industry it's in, we tweak our material and we specialize, make it customized for the customer. As you mentioned, we've done from construction to high-end software sales, high-end hardware sales in IT, financial services, media. Yeah, so it's a big range.
I remember that.
Big electronics, yes. And we've been in 13 countries around the world.
Yeah. So this might be a trivial question, but why are salespeople important?
Derek, I years ago I was invited to the Scottish Engineering Awards in Glasgow, and it's a big do. It's a big deal in Scotland for the engineers, and it's a black tie do, and I think it was at the Marriott in Glasgow. And at one of the breaks, we were having a chat, and one chap said to me, "So Jack, what do you do?" So I said, "Well, I'm in the sales business, do sales training, everything like that." And he gave me this kind of condescending look and like, "Oh, really?" And the MD of the company I was with turned around to him and he said, "Don't you speak to Jack like that. If it wasn't for salespeople, you engineers wouldn't have a job." So that's what sales is. If you don't have a turnover in your business, you don't have a business.
So the average salesperson out there, my perception is that there's quite a high turnover. We look in most industries, insurance and property and retail. They don't, in general, they don't last very long. That's my perception. Maybe you've got a different story to tell.
Yeah, I think it's different in the retail type environment, selling to individuals, as opposed to the corporate environment. I think, in the individual sales, commission-based individual sales, I think the turnover is extremely high and the failure rate is even higher. In the corporate market, with it's business to business, we've got a slightly different problem. They tend to last a bit longer, but up as high as 60-70% of them never achieve their targets. But the companies hang on to them, and that's probably the only reason why the turnover isn't as big as it should be.
Now, we all have our perceptions of what a good salesperson looks like. What springs to mind is the guy with a checked sports jacket and the striped tie and the Clark Gable moustache and the cigar. And the big smile, which doesn't extend to his eyes. Are salespeople born, or can they be taught?
Yeah, I don't think there's such a thing as a born salesman. You have these born expressives, who become salespeople because they can, and they can do all that. And really that those days of selling like that are long, long, long gone. So I think that selling or sales is a science. It's not an art. So you can take anybody and you can teach them the correct formulas. in sales. And if they continue to follow the right formula, they're going to get the right results.
What are some of those elements of the formula?
I like to just say, get back to the basics. Okay. And the basics is be prepared. Preparation is critical. As an example, yesterday it was quite interesting. I did a presentation to a board and I introduced myself and I introduced my company. And the MD turned around to me and said, well, wouldn't you like us to introduce ourselves? And I said, you're very welcome to do that. But I want to tell you that, I wasn't stalking you, but I have looked at all of your LinkedIn profiles and I have looked at your website and all of you are on the website. So I know who you are and I know what your background is, but you're very welcome to introduce yourself. But the key thing is preparation. Okay, be prepared. Ask questions. I think with Frank Bettger, 1926, Frank Bettger said, selling ain't telling, it's asking. Nearly 100 years later, and we still haven't got that right. Okay. And of course, ask questions, listen to the answers. And then when you present your solution, present it to the customer's needs. Don't do a stop me if you see something you like presentation.
When I was running a sales force at a life insurance company in my early years, I had this little test. I had a smart pen which I put on the desk, and it looked fairly smart, but it wasn't really expensive. And I said, "Sell me this pen," as part of the interview process. And many people came and said, "Well, it's a very nice pen. Would you like to buy these?" Or some of them had a little bit of a story, but they did all of the talking, none of the asking. When I remember the smart guy whose name, who will remain nameless, came in my office and said...
the smart guy was pointing...
and said, "Mr. Pete, what is important to you about a pen?" So I said, I don't know, just hopefully it writes decently. And I like a pen that's not too smudgy and fine liner. And he was looking around my office and he said, and one of the photos was with me, my teenage kids. I said, "I noticed you have teenage children. I assume those are your children." So I said, "Yes, they are." He says, "So if you're like me, some of your pens go missing, they get borrowed and then they never return." So I said, "Yeah, well, that's quite right. I find myself paying in quite a fortune at the company for pens that, to replenish my stock." So in other words, you don't want a pen that's too expensive. Yeah. I also see you carry your pen in your shirt pocket. So presumably you don't want a pen that smudges or leaks ink, because then your wife is not going to be very happy with you. So I said, "Yeah, that's all true." So he said, "A man in your position can't be seen to be writing with a plastic ballpoint pen." So you want a pen that looks fairly decent, like this one. I mean, we can produce these for 25 Rand. And if you give us the order by Friday, we can let you have them for 23 Rand, and we can, or alternatively, we can include your company's branding on each pen. If you buy, say, 12 dozen of these. So can we sign the deal? So then I thought, okay, this guy can sell. It was streets ahead of anything that anybody else had ever done in doing that same test. But it just shows you how scarce selling skills are. Oh.
And it's not telling, it's asking.
And most of them do all the talking. People ask them to sell you a pen and they will do all the talking. They won't ask you anything. So most salespeople, sales managers even, whether they're B2B or retail, they have the same product. If they're in the same company, they have the same access to the same stock. They have the same price list, but vastly differing sales results. So why is that, and what are the habits of a successful salesperson?
There's two sides to it, Derek. The one is clearly knowledge and skill. Okay, let's take that as a given. But attitude is everything. Mm-hmm. And one of the attributes is discipline. If you don't have discipline, you don't have anything. Mm-hmm. So selling is known worldwide as the highest paid profession. But less than 2% of people actually achieve any greatness in sales in terms of even revenue. The guys that do that have an incredibly high work ethic. They love what they do. Mm-hmm. And they're disciplined. There's that beautiful saying, is the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is that successful people simply form the habit of doing the things that unsuccessful people don't like doing and will not do. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean they like doing it. They've just formed the habit of doing the things. Mm-hmm. And they do it over and over and over again. It's coming back to that formula.
I think somebody that I know said, you've got to first do the things that you have to do before the things that you want to do.
Yeah, that was Winston Churchill, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So, I know in your business, having been a client of yours years ago, you have a 4-quadrant model when you talk about the salespeople in the organization. And it's learner, leaver, problem, and what's the other one? Leader. So can you give us a brief description of what a person in each of those 4 quadrants looks like?
Yes, indeed. We actually have tools to analyze the people properly. But in each quadrant, it's about knowledge and skill, and it's about attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the right attitude and you have the right level of knowledge and skill, you're going to be a leader in any organization.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the right attitude and you don't have the knowledge and skill, you're a learner, and then we have to develop you. If you have all the knowledge and skill and you don't have the right attitude, you're a problem. And that's where we get engaged quite a lot in organizations, is that they have problems. And what people need to understand is that problem people don't become learners. They either become leaders or they become leavers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about changing their attitude because they've got the knowledge and skill already. The other side is if you don't have the knowledge and skill and you don't have the right attitude, then you're a leaver.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be there.
I've heard it said before that some of the, I think people you would describe as leaders, they're not leaders. They have the knowledge and skill and they do fairly well at sales, but the attitude rubs everybody up the wrong way. Which way is he going?
He's a problem.
Yeah.
So one of the big things in sales is team players.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an individualistic game, although people think it's an individualistic game. Mm-hmm. If you're creating a bad attitude in the sales team, it affects everybody. Mm-hmm. So you either get it right or really go and spoil somebody else's sales team, but not mine.
Well, yeah, just reminds me of a saying, your job is either got to involve serving the customer or serving somebody who is serving the customer. If it's not one of those two, then you probably don't have a job here. So if you're one of those people who are serving the customer, but have a really nasty attitude towards the people helping you to serve that customer, you're not going to get the support you need to.
Exactly. And everything falls over.
Okay, sales managers, how important are they? Those are the people that manage the sales force.
Yeah. They're critical. They are absolutely critical. And I like to compare a sales manager to a sergeant major in the army. Mm-hmm. If you think back to sergeant majors, they're strong disciplinarians, mm-hmm. but they really care about their troops. And the key here is that if the discipline isn't in place, somebody's going to get injured or killed. So that's critically important. But then you've got to care for them because they're going to be risking themselves for you as a sergeant major. So the same thing happens in sales. You've got to have the discipline in the sales team. They've got to know that when the sales manager says they've got to do something, they do it. And the second thing is the sales manager's got to love his people. He's got to care about his people. If he doesn't care about them, he's not going to listen to their problems. He's not going to develop them. And he's not going to be able to help them. Mm-hmm. And that's really what his job is to help them to succeed. Because the whole team succeeds, the sales manager succeeds. So one of the biggest problems that I've encountered with sales managers, once they become a manager and they get the fancy office, they stay in the office. And they try and manage out of the office. Yeah. And all they're doing then is they're managing results. Yeah. And I think you and I would agree that management by results is management by hope.
Yeah. It's interesting the analogy used of the sergeant major. When I was conscripted into the army, I had just finished school. So in those days, you either got conscripted or you joined a permanent force. There was no escape. Somehow I had to do military service. Anyway, so I was conscripted. I went to Kimberley. It was hot as hell. I remember it. Most days were turning around over 100 degrees Fahrenheit from quite early in the morning. And we drilled a lot. And one stage I got flu and I didn't even know I had it, and I was drilling, and then my nose started bleeding and I keeled over on the parade ground. And the sergeant major, I hated his guts up till then. And he said, take that man back to his barracks. And a couple of them dragged me back to the barracks, and in those days, the barracks at that particular camp were converted aircraft hangars. So our particular hangar had 102 beds, double beds, 50 spots. And I was dumped on the bed. The other guys went back to work. So I was lying alone in this hangar of 102 beds. And everybody else was out working. And I don't know where they went on to the next exercise, but after about half an hour, the sergeant major walked into the room. So I thought, yeah, I'm in trouble again for being lazy or lame or whatever. So, and he sat down on my bed and he said, "How are you feeling, my boy?" And he spoke to me like a father, and and he sat there for at least 15 to 20 minutes talking to me, asking me about my background and blah, blah, blah. And it turned out I got a few days off because on light duty because I was sick. But I think after that, after I recovered, I would have walked through walls for that sergeant major just because of the way he treated me.
Yeah, exactly. And the point is, it's 40 years later, you still remember it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this sales-oriented company. I have a little theory that I've had it for many years, and I can't prove it, but I know it's true. That whether you're running a coffee shop or a multinational bank, your job is the same. You have to get new customers, keep and grow your existing customers, get them to come back, in other words, and buy more, and manage your expenses. Now, use manage expenses carefully because often you find the accounting types will take over business and immediately cut all budgets, And at the next board meeting, they'll say, "What happened to the sales?" Well, the salespeople are all sitting in the office because they haven't got any budget to travel anywhere to go and do their business. So my argument is that whatever you do on any one of those three alone, that's getting new customers, keeping existing customers, managing expenses, whatever you do to improve one of those three in isolation will negatively impact both of the other two.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And I can't prove it mathematically, but I've from a priori evidence over many years, I know that to be true. So, organizations need to realize that. You can't just fix one element. You've got to manage the whole thing as an orchestra. All these parts have got to play in harmony. What does a good sales organization look like?
It actually starts from the top. Your chief executive officer should actually be your best salesman. Mm-hmm. I had a customer years back in Singapore, and the MD ran the whole Asia Pacific rim. And his job, and it was proactively done, is he saw every single one of his key accounts in every one of the countries under his control once a month.
Mm. How many countries were there?
13 countries throughout, from China down to Australia.
So he had a few frequent flyer miles.
Big time. In fact, one of his jokes was that he needed to put a business class seat in his bedroom because he couldn't sleep in a bed anymore. Now, Derek, I think it starts from the top. If the chief executive officer and his executive team understand the importance of sales to their business and they actively participate in the sales in the business, everything else fits in.
So why do most organizations fail at this?
Well, exactly what you were saying. It's that third tier that they tend to spend their time on, managing the expenses, because it's all about profits at the end of the day. So, the whole thing is, I'm making a profit of 10 and my shareholders want a profit of 12. So therefore, to get a 20% increase in profit, I have to cut my expenses by 20% or something like that. Okay. Any increase in turnover at the same margin, net margin that you get drops straight down to the bottom line. Yeah. It doesn't cost you anything extra, So that looking after customers, acquiring new customers, you're exactly right. That triangle has got to be perfectly balanced. And organizations don't get to that because and they manage expenses and they actually cut their businesses up. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that amazed me, one company I got involved in, they had a huge incentive program for salespeople, uncapped their potential earnings. And these guys, their sales went up quadruple. They never did anything about the aftermarket.
Yeah.
So they're wonderful sales, but they couldn't support the sales and they lost all the customers.
Sure. Yeah. I was thinking of a book now, and I would like to give credit to the author. I was looking for it the other day and I couldn't find it. I don't think it's in print anymore. I read it many years ago. So apologies whoever wrote it. If I find it after this podcast, I will give you credit. The book is called Double Your Profits, 40 Ways to Drastically Improve Your Business or something. 40 things you need to do to double your profits. And one of them was, in bad times, outspend the competition on marketing expenses. Ruthlessly cut operational expenses. That's where you save the monies on the operation. You outspend the competition on marketing expense. I think there's a lot of truth in that from my observations over the years. But anyway, so Jack, you know better than I, the world is changing rapidly. There's now online self-service and product reviews and testimonials you can get online. There's artificial intelligence, the big e-retailers like Amazon and Takealot in our country. There's predictive analysis, everything. I mean, you can't go onto your Facebook page anymore without seeing an advert for some kind of product which you just happened to look up last week, or even half an hour ago. So all this artificial intelligence seems to be taking over the world. Given all of that, what future do you see for a traditional sales force?
Okay, I have to answer this from a business-to-business perspective because that's our market.
Sure.
I believe technology has a role, but technology is an enabler. And let me explain to you why I'm saying that, is that as a buyer, I have now become a lot more sophisticated. I can go into the internet and I can research whatever I like. So by the time your salesman comes into my office, I know your product, I know your competition's product, I know who your competition is, I can even look up what their market share is, I know what their pricing is. So when you come into my business as a salesperson, what I'm saying is one of two things. You've got to add value to my business. And you can't add value to my business if you're not helping me save money or you're helping me to make money. So you better understand my business, you better understand my customers, because that's where I make my money. So don't come in here to flog a product. I can get that online. Okay. So what is happening though, and is because of technology, is that salespeople are now becoming office bound and they're becoming quotas. They're not becoming salespeople anymore. Where the demand, in my view, for better salesmanship and better customer relationships is getting bigger and bigger. It's not getting less and less. But we have to use technology as an enabler, not as the job.
Yeah. Okay. That's very interesting. Jack Ellis, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast today. I wish you much success in your business. I know you will be successful. Thank you very much.
Derek, thank you.
To our listeners out there, if you want to get in touch with me or with Jack, pop me an email on Derek, DEREK, at DerekPeed, PEAD at the end, .org. So it's Derek at DerekPeed.org. I hope you've enjoyed this session and we'll see you again soon.